Niccolo Machiavelli, a name that's universally known, often used to describe the actions of cruel and cunning people in the world, especially in terms of leadership. To be Machiavellian is not usually a compliment. While reading The Prince, in which Machiavelli describes how to be an effective leader, one question arose. How is this pamphlet, written to the Medici family in the Renaissance period, applicable to the audience of today? Our suspicion is that to be an effective leader in a country or time period, one must follow some of the prince's advice. Through this video, we hope to uncover how cunning, scheming, and cruel modern world leaders are in their reign over a country. To do this, we will take four leaders of today: Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, Angela Merkel, and Justin Trudeau, and describe how their actions either adheres to or is in stark contrast with advice Machiavelli provides to his audience. Continuing, we will then use the personality traits of the leader and run them through a Machiavellian trait test to discover how similar their actions are to the ideal prince. Through this, we hope to discover what it means in a modern sense to be Machiavellian. Known internationally, is the president of Russia. Putin quickly rose from power out of the KGB ranks to the government of Russia in the early 1990s to take the presidency in 1999. Since then, Putin has effectively had complete control of the country as he acts as either president or prime minister, with the other position being held by Dmitry Medvedev. Although the leader of a seemingly democratic country, Putin has been on the hot seat surrounded by debates on his country's political and economic corruption, leading many to believe that he is not truly as democratic as he says. Putin follows one of Machiavelli's rules impeccably. He gets rid of his opponents. In Chapter 7 of The Prince, in which the life story of Cesare Borgia is brought forth, Machiavelli says that Borgia owed most of his success from his quick ways of disposing of his rivals. With his use of Ramiro de Orco as a scapegoat in Romagna, Borgia killed all of his political rivals and successfully took over the state. Borgia also took over many other states in which he overthrew the current reign by exiling or killing rulers and establishing his own. Putin is very much like Borgia, and in this sense, he has exiled and imprisoned countless Russian journalists, political opponents, and activists who have opposed him. For example, Boris Berezovsky and Mikhail Khodorkovsky, both Russian billionaires connected to the oil industry, were jailed and then fled the country shortly after Putin took power. As neither entrepreneur would ally themselves with Putin's new regime, he viewed them and their assets as a threat to his power and quickly seized their fortunes and banished them to solidify his claim over Russia. Another similarity between Machiavelli's description of Borgia and today's Putin is his annexation of surrounding states to grow his sphere of influence and control over surrounding territory as a ruler. In 2014, masked Russian military officials invaded Crimea, a small section of Ukraine, and annexed it using a popular vote that included a ballot without the option for Crimea to remain part of Ukraine, as it currently was. Russia then began to invade parts of Ukraine in key locations in an attempt to grab more land. This followed Machiavelli's words of wisdom even more closely when taken into consideration that Putin relies more on his own soldiers from Russia and does not use outside help in his military escapades. In the chapter on auxiliary troops, mixed troops, and your own troops in The Prince, it is discussed that your own troops will be the most loyal and useful in maintaining power. Lastly, Putin can't lose. Over his years of running in presidential elections, Putin has allegedly rigged many, causing much political outcry from his opponents and other international institutions. However, Putin retains a high approval rating from his people, ranging between about 60 and 88% in the last 10 years, and currently is at about 70. Although his approval rating is high, Putin definitely follows another of Machiavelli's ideas that is better for a leader to be feared than loved. This is seen not only with his KGB background, but also with his strong military influence in Eastern Europe, and on a more personal level, with pictures of him wrestling bears and asking President Obama to ride shirtless on horseback for a meeting. Overall, Putin has been an effective leader for his country, keeping Russia in the global game for power with his textbook Machiavellian ways. Using his personality and actions, we have therefore tested him with a score of 94, which is incredibly high and shows Putin's adherence to the prince, although living in modern times. Angela Merkel is the leader of Germany and the current longest-serving government head in the EU, serving as chancellor since 2005. During her rule, Germany has become increasingly liberal, not surprising as Germany was united only 15 years prior to her ruling start. With her new socialist policies in the footsteps of many Scandinavian countries, she seems to be lacking in Machiavellian ideals. To begin, Merkel is very accepting of outsiders and those that hold not loyalty to Germany, as she has displayed in her welcoming and advocating for Syrian refugees displaced by the Syrian civil war. In accepting foreigners into her country's culture, Merkel has broken one of Machiavellian's rules that foreigners are not good to rely on to maintain power. In The Prince, this is brought into the fold by his description of France lending help to Bourgeois only to later rescind it and ultimately kill him. He called Cesare's reliance on the French a mistake, and although Cesare tried to get rid of the French later on after using them to originally gain power, he failed, which led to his downfall. As a member of the EU, Germany, under Merkel's leadership, continues to break this Machiavellian ideal as the EU creates laws that apply to a large group of countries and take away the power from Merkel as a leader of her own country, causing her and her people to rely more on foreign laws. Her strong advocacy for human rights also speaks out against the prince, as she goes more for the love of her citizens than the fear of them. Merkel's approval rating is around 55% currently, though, much lower than Putin's, who some say uses fear to lead his country. This points towards the prince being relevant in modern society. Merkel's use of national health care and high taxes, especially for the high-income earners in her country, show the country's use of treating its citizens well to elicit a sense of loyalty from them. This, however, goes directly against Machiavelli's advice, as he implies pampered citizens will be less grateful for what they have as they are used to it, and therefore will be less likely to be good law-abiding citizens than citizens from a country who live in fear and must be good to stay alive, like in Romana with De Orcos. Overall, Merkel's blend of personality traits and leadership decisions lead her to scoring very low on the Machiavellian test with a score of 43. Her 13-year-long leadership, with its lack of Machiavellian ideals and success in both national control and EU domination, bring to question whether the prince illustrates the only effective way for a leader to rule a country.
Kim Jong-un is a North Korean politician who is the current supreme leader of North Korea since 2011, as well as the leader of the Workers' Party of Korea since 2012. He was promoted to the rank of Marshal of North Korea in the Korean People's Army in 2012, making him the supreme commander of the armed forces. He is often referred to as the Marshal by state media. Under his leadership, human rights in North Korea are severely limited. Furthermore, in December 2013, news outlets reported that he ordered the execution of his uncle for treachery, and in February of 2017 ordered the assassination of his half-brother. The United Nations General Assembly has since reported human rights violations. In 2013, a report written by the UN Human Rights Council outlined 9 specific areas of violations of Kim Jong-un's leadership: the right to food, prison camps, torture and inhuman treatment, arbitrary arrest and detention, discrimination in basic human rights and fundamental freedoms, freedom of expression, right to life, freedom of individual movement, and enforced disappearances and abductions of nations of other states. Given this report, Kim Jong-un runs a very strict nation. It is interesting to relate his actions back to Machiavelli's characteristics outlined in The Prince. Chapter 17 is about cruelty and compassion, and about whether it is better to be loved than feared, or the reverse. Machiavelli said, "One ought to be both loved and feared, but, since it is difficult to accomplish both at the same time, I maintain it is much safer to be feared than loved, if you have to do without one of the two." Given the information that has arisen about Kim Jong-un, he is very clearly feared. He runs a strict state with extreme censorship and limited freedoms. Additionally, over the past half-decade, North Korea has been openly looking to develop more nuclear weapons. Analysts have concluded that the country's nuclear arsenal contains anywhere from 15 to 60 bombs, with at least one type of missile that has the ability to strike anywhere in the United States. Despite Machiavelli's original comments, he maintains a good leader may be feared but not hated. It is surprising that despite Kim Jong-un's national and worldwide reputation, he has an extremely high approval rating in North Korea. A Korea Research Center poll concluded that 78% of respondents trust the leader. There was a jump in approval after the 2018 Inter-Korean Summit, where Kim and South Korean President Moon Jae-in signed a full peace treaty that would formally end the Korean War by the end of the year. Given Kim Jong-un's leadership methods and actions, it would seem obvious that he is quite Machiavellian. So, using his personality traits and characteristics to determine his Machiavellianism score, it yielded a result of 84 out of 100, which is quite high, indicating that he is indeed quite Machiavellian. Justin Trudeau is a Canadian politician who has been the leader of the Liberal Party since 2013 and the Prime Minister of Canada since 2015. In the federal election that was decided after the longest official campaign in over a century, the Liberals won 184 of the 338 seats, with 39.5% of the popular vote, a strong majority, gaining 150 seats compared to the 2011 federal election. Immediately, this signals that Trudeau is far more progressive than the others we have discussed. This can be seen through his policies enacted in his time as a prime minister. As soon as he was sworn in on November 4th, 2015, Trudeau announced his first legislative policy would be to lower taxes for middle-income Canadians and raise taxes for the top 1% of income earners. He also issued a statement promising to rebuild relations with Indigenous peoples and run an open, ethical, and transparent government. In December of the same year, he did in fact meet with hundreds of chiefs and laid out his philosophies and commitments to Canada's Indigenous people to ensure their constitutionally guaranteed rights as a sacred obligation. Trudeau's other domestic policies continue to reflect his open and liberal attitude. He has stated that he wishes to form a party that is resolutely pro-choice for abortion. This stance is in line with a resolution passed by a majority of Liberal Party members back in 2012 at its policy convention. Next, he told a crowd, "I'm actually not in favor of decriminalizing cannabis. I'm in favor of legalizing it, tax it, regulate it. It's one of the only ways to keep it out of the hands of our kids because the current war on drugs, the current model is not working. We have to use evidence and science to make sure we're moving forward on that." As of October 17, 2018, the recreational use of marijuana no longer violates criminal law in Canada as a law that Trudeau passed. In terms of Trudeau's other beliefs, he looks for freedom and equality for his people. He expressed opposition against the proposed Quebec Charter of Values, a controversial charter that prohibited public sector employees from displaying or wearing certain religious symbols. He justified that it would make the people of Quebec choose between their freedom of religion and freedom of expression. Furthermore, Justin Trudeau identifies as a feminist and has stated he is proud to be a feminist. He felt it was important to name an equal number of men and women in his cabinet after being sworn in 2015. Trudeau also advocates for a zero tolerance for sexual assault, harassment, or other forms of misconduct by his employees or caucus colleagues. Lastly, he continues to welcome all people, including immigrants. In 2017, the Liberal government announced that Canada will accept nearly 1 million immigrants over the next 3 years. It will climb to 310,000 in 2018, 330,000 in 2019, and 340,000 in 2020. Trudeau does not follow a typical Machiavellian leadership style. He looks to unite his citizens in a more friendly and safe manner that does not involve war or aggression. He does follow some of the ideas, however, brought up in the Prince, such as his avoidance of hatred and contempt that was discussed in Chapter 19. Machiavelli stated, "Make every effort to ensure your actions suggest greatness and endurance, strength of character and of purpose. When it comes to the private business of your subjects, you should aim to ensure you never have to change your decisions once they have been taken, and that you acquire a reputation that will discourage people from even considering tricking you or deceiving you. Trudeau has abided by this certainly. He has a positive and welcoming confidence that has gained him much support. However, much of the prince indicates that this is only one piece of the puzzle, and Trudeau may not check every box that Machiavelli mentions. To check this idea that Trudeau doesn't follow Machiavelli's intentions, we once again ran his leadership style and characteristics through the Machiavellianism test, giving us a score for him of 49 out of 100. This is quite low in terms of a percentage of the population who have taken this test, but the fact remains that it's still somewhat high, indicating that no leader is truly opposite from Machiavelli. To lead, you must possess some of his characteristics, but you do not have to follow every single one. Each of these leaders differ from Machiavelli, and some are like him more than others, but it is not necessary to do everything that the prince has said to be a powerful leader of a state. However, it is still of significance to know that there is at least a little bit of Machiavelli in all the leaders. No matter which way you perceive his actions, his commanding attitude, confidence, and intellect prove that Machiavelli was wise enough to lay down a foundation that can be seen today in modern politics.